Welcome into Deseret News Rewind. Dusty Litster and Dane Stewart, as always, presented by Hyde Associates, brought to you by the Utah Army National Guard, and we're outfitted by Black Clover.
Yeah, that's right, Dusty. And just a reminder, if you're looking for that right holiday gift for that person in your family or a friend or a teammate, give Black Clover a look. Check out blackcloverusa.com to see their full lineup of men's and women's gear. You can use the promo code DNR20 to get 20% off your order. Or if you want to save a little more than that, check out the store just off 123rd South in Draper next to the water park. Tell them Deseret News Rewind sent you, and you'll get a little added bonus holiday cheer from Black Clover.
Absolutely. Hey, gift cards make a great gift too, and then let people go into the store, get the feel for what they want. There's always a good thing. But we're excited to get you going. Football season sadly coming to a close, and now time to get ready to switch basketball, to switch gears and get into basketball. And before we get into our basketball coverage today, we're going to get through all the previews. Let's get to our opening statement brought to you by Hyde Associates. Dane and I both use Justin Heidemann Associates. I've known Justin forever. He's been a great support of our program the last 2 years, and could not recommend Justin Heidemann and Associates any more than the fact that we use them.
Yeah, you're right, Dusty. And it's a full-service law firm. So whatever legal need you have, might be business, might be personal, maybe you want to just get things set up, he's going to be able to take care of you. And if you tell him Deseret News Rewind sent you, you'll get a free consultation from Heidemann and Associates. Learn more at utah.law or give them a call at 801-754-4240.
Absolutely. And we thought we'd go into this one because, we know we had games that happened this week. There's lots of things we're going to get into throughout the basketball season. But I wanted to take a minute. Here we are in the Christmas season, the holiday season. First of all, hope everyone is staying happy, healthy, and strong. But I just wanted to take a moment. I know Dane had to take care of our awards videos, as taking care of some family things. My mom lost my mom a couple weeks ago, and just at the funeral. I just want to take a minute in our opening statement to thank so many of our fans and people who watch the show, and have coaches and administrators and people that we've been around. I just want to take a minute to just give you a heartfelt thank you for the kindness you've shown toward me and my family. It certainly meant a lot through a very, very difficult time for us. We try not to get too personal on the show, but when we're on every week, we do something. Just kind of feel like we get to know people's stories, and it meant a lot. It really did, and couldn't express it any more than I could to thank you all so much for your kindness and people reaching out and messages and things. And it really has meant a great deal. And it's what's great about what we do in high school communities is that it becomes a community. And I just felt so great to feel a part of that. And just want to thank you all, and certainly thank Dane and Vince for taking care of everything while I was gone. And again, just don't know how else to say it than thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart, from my family, for the kindness from all of you who watch and participate in games and everything we do. Just meant a great deal. So now let's transition from that. Let's get into the show today. We're going to get you ready for the basketball season. And what we want to do is we're going to go through regions. We're going to talk about regions, get you previewed for each of those. And none of that, we'll also be picking our 6A, 5A, 4A. Maybe we'll go a little bit deeper in our championship picks as well. And maybe pick out some surprises from the lower classifications too. But Dane, let's start in 6A. 6A's reigning champion, the Fremont Silverwolves, graduating so much talent, including our most outstanding player of the year in Dallin Hall. So let's start in Region 1, since that's where the champion comes from. And this is a different looking Region 1 than it was a year ago.
Yeah, it is, Dusty. I mean, we are, 2 weeks into the year, and if I told you the only undefeated in Region 1 would be Northridge, I don't know if anyone would have had that statement going. The Knights have looked really good in the early part. Now, look, I know there have been some tournaments and various levels of competition, but when I look in this region, a couple things that have really stood out to me in the early going. How about Layton? I mean, they returned Ethan Potter. He's certainly got to be on a short list for Mr. Basketball in the 2020-2021 season. But, man, they've had some surprising losses in the early going. Going to be interesting to see how they get the pieces built around him. This Davis team, they graduated so much talent off of last year. You talk about Fremont graduating a lot of talent. They did. Davis graduated just as much. And yet, you can see some of those young pieces working their way in for Coach Sims. This Region 1 going to be really, really interesting. Royce had some competitive games. Syracuse had a nice come from behind victory. This Region 1 is going to have a lot more parity in it than we've seen in recent years. You're not going to have, my opinion, kind of that runaway that we've seen the last couple of years, 1, 2, 3 teams kind of distancing themselves. I think this is going to be really tough and competitive at the top.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch what happens, right? Because Dallin Hall leaves and see now what Corey Mullaney's going to do in replacing Dallin Hall, Baylor Harrop, the masked man as well, Voorhees, and others. And it's just going to be a big thing. And then you're going to have the individual performers like Kobe Schreier that we know what he's going to be able to do. I mean, Kobe's going to just light it up from the floor. He's going to have the green light wherever he goes. And it'll be very interesting to watch what happens in Region 1. But I'm with you because you look at what Kelby Miller has with Leighton year in and year out. It's length, and then it's really a team buying in with Leighton. That's what it's been for so long, which makes this Region 1 so different.
Yeah, it does. It's going to be interesting. I'm glad you mentioned Kobe Shriver. That kid can absolutely stroke it. And remember seeing him as a youngster, and I think this is his senior year. He's had some big games already for the Roy Royals. They're going to be a team to keep an eye on. And talking about Leighton, we talked about Ethan Potter. Who's going to be that guy to step up? Can Preston Squire be that guy who can come in, put in 15, 18 a night, kind of created that 1-2 duo? I think Potter's going to need some scoring help for this Leighton team. But, man, this is going to be a really fun region. I don't mean that to sound like Region 1 is down. It's not. I think it's just going to be night in, night out. You better bring your A game because there's a lot of teams that are going to be able to compete with the best in this region. We didn't even talk about Weber, Dusty. Like the Weber Warriors return a ton of talent. And I apologize, Weber, because they were on my list as one of the teams to keep an eye on. Coach Cosby, his second year here at Weber. You've got Cannon DeVries. We've seen what he can do on the gridiron, right? Now we get to see him on the hardwood. Can't wait for that. But Quinn Bennett, real lengthy shooter for this Weber team. He's going to be returning. They've got a lot of key returners, these Weber Warriors do. I think they're going to be a real sneaky team to watch out for in Region 1.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. And hey, by the way, here's a name to remember on that Davis team, Rex Sunderland. You better keep your eye on Rex Sunderland and also Henry Eyrig. Those are really, really good. And then none of that, there's a Garf, for heaven's sakes. You think you were getting rid of Tyson Garf? Oh, no. Little brother can stroke it from the outside too. I just saw that this weekend. So keep your head on a swivel. This Region 1 is going to be very different.
And Colby Sims, that name will sound familiar, right? Apparently it does run in
Coach
the
Son gets enough run.
He was 6 of 10 from 3 in the game I did. So, I mean, they got shooters. This Davis team, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to take. Yeah, they're going to get some things figured out. They had a fun weekend down at the Falcon Classic. All right, let's get to Region 2. And, this has been, as much as Kearns is Region 2 in football until this year, the basketball team's Region 2 as well.
Yeah, last year was a tough year for Kearns. And we said it. We said it was going to be a year where they were going to, kind of have to earn their, what do Cougars have, spots or stripes or whatever pattern they have on the coats. It was going to be one of those years for the Kearns Cougars. And, I think that we started to see them kind of come along. I'll tell you, I went and saw part of one of their games this year, Dusty. This team looks completely different. Now, they return, I think, all 5 starters. They return a number of guys off the bench. They also have a couple of transfers moving in. They are back to running. They're back to defensive pressure. They can shoot from the outside. They've got length on the inside. This Kearns team, look, I hope Region 2 enjoyed beating them last year because it's going to be a tall task this season. Now, that being said, mark my words, Region 2, this will be the most competitive this region has been in the last decade. This region is going to be so good. We are going to spend time there. I will drag Dusty by the heels if I have to. We will get to Region 2 because you look at West Jordan. They didn't lose a region game last year. They returned maybe the best score.
West Jordan, absolutely. Yeah.
What?
I was saying that Kearns Region 2, it's West Jordan. It's Mason Sawyer. What am I thinking?
It is,
I keep putting them in Region 3.
Yeah. Not anymore. Maybe next year. They return Logan Prince, right? They return other guys around him that can score the basketball. You also have a big down low for West Jordan in Taufahema. This guy, he has grown. He's got some good body to him. He can work you in the blocks. He's going to be a good physical presence on the inside for Sawyer, but this team is built on defense. They're not going to let you get in the 70s, the 80s. You're not going to get to that level. They're going to keep this game within confines and work their offense, and they're going to be really, really fun to watch. And then the Cypress Pirates. This is a team that has maybe 2 of the best shooters in the classification on the floor, and we're familiar with one of them in Quentin Meza. He's an absolute stud. They got another one too, Diego. You got to watch for this young man. Neither of these 2 kids are, 6'3", 6'5", but they can score from anywhere in the half court. And yes, I do mean anywhere in the half court. They're going to hit multiple threes every game. They got some nice bodies as well. Tia, he'll get up and down the floor. They got another nice long forward that he can handle a little bit, can drive to the rim, good rebounder. So this Cyprus team, they've got some pieces. And Coach Smith said, I love this group. They kind of play the way I want to play. I like our team to play. So I think those three teams, a top Region 2, it's going to be neck and neck and a great battle.
Yeah, and if they don't play well, we know that their coach can still hoop. So you see him every month. I mean, we know Coach Smith's out there to make a run of it. No, I agree with you. I think Region 2 should be very interesting right now. I talk about Kearns, but it's West Jordan's region to give up. I mean, you have to take it from them. That team's going to be really, really good, at least in my opinion. And as you know, I am a historian of Region 2, so I take that for what it's worth. Let's go to Region 3, which does not include – No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one more note. Before games were played Saturday, speaking about Kearns being back, they were the second highest scoring team in 6A. So, Region 2, good luck with that.
Dan, well, it's because Dan Cosby's one of our favorites, but it's hard to think that Mason Sawyer is a head coach when we covered him. So, but let's go to Region 3 that does not include West Jordan, for those of you who are just coming to the program. But Region 3, this region is just as interesting because with Harriman, what are they going to look like? And I know you got to see them here this last week, but also Bingham. So much change going on at Bingham as well. Region 3, this is going to be, I don't know, this is a very interesting feel for this region.
It's going to be really interesting, Dusty. I mean, you think about Region 3. Last year, you had so much coaching turnover. You had a new coach at Copper Hills, new coach at Bingham, new coach at Harriman. It was like everything was just new. And I think this year, you're going to see a lot of things just settle a little bit. I know Harriman. Look, we did their second-round playoff loss to West Jordan last year. Well, we did West Jordan at Harriman this year. And I remember last year, Coach Gummersall said, I already got that date circled. We're going to be looking forward to that one. And, they had a double-digit lead. West Jordan came back on them, but they were able to close it out. And you see this West Jordan team, they've got two of the best scorers in the backcourt that you could want. And Bodie Negley, and then also in the youngster, or in Race Young, who's a senior. These two can absolutely score from beyond the arc. You'll see them dribble, drive a little bit. And they've got a really good kind of like a 2-3. Well, I'm going to call him a small forward. That's what we're going to call him. He can body up on the inside, but he can stroke it from range as well. And Jesse Johnson, this young man, hit 5 threes in that win over West Jordan. He was a good presence on the inside as well, and he could get up down the floor. And they got a big as well that they like to mix in there at the center position, do Harriman. They got a lot of interesting pieces that Coach Gummersall can work with. But then you look at the Bingham Miners, and this is a team that people picked to win that region. Well, they returned Jordan Toscano. We've seen him for multiple years at Bingham, how good he has been. Justice Reiser was a big contributor on that team last year, averaged almost 12 points a game. He's going to be back. Second year for Coach Stratman. What can he get these Bingham Miners to do? Going to be really interesting. And then Copper Hills. Look, it wouldn't be Copper Hills basketball without an all-free. And they do have another all-free at Copper Hills this year. The young man can score. So I think those three teams are going to be really, really fun to watch. And don't forget, folks, West is in Region 3.
Yeah. Interesting, right? Because you forget that's what it moves to. Hey, by the way, it's a couple of other names for Copper Hills because I saw them this weekend, and that is Quincy Hills. Better keep your eye on Quincy Hills. This kid's got a handle, little Preston Sanchez-esque game to him. And then we talked about Alfred, he'll come off the bench, but also Butler, who's one of the top 3-point shooters in the state a year ago. Coach Watkins in that second year will be interesting to watch. I think Copper Hills have something to say what happens in Region 3. Be very, very interesting to watch. All right, the region we're all waiting for.
Real quick, before we go to that, Dusty, because there was a couple of – we didn't even talk about Riverton, Cody Nixon, young guy that can score. And how about Dante Martine, right, at Jordan, going to be back for the Digs this year. That kid, he's a baller. So there's a lot of great talent in this Region 3. It's going to be fun.
Region 3 is going to be very, very interesting. I didn't mean to transition that quickly, but you just know how I get. When I get close to Region 4 –
he gets excited.
All right, Region 4. I mean, we always talk about transition. Well, how about American 4 goes from a state championship to last year, everybody gets in, but they don't move on. But this year, this might be better. Well, as far as talent-wise, might be better than the team that won the state championship team.
Well, I mean, they've got a lot of talent all across the floor. And, I mean, you look at what this AF team has. They welcome in some new kids and some returners, I guess you could say. I mean, to me, it starts with Jackson Kohler, right? Young man back in the state. He was coming up in that area, went to Wasatch Academy, transferred away, back at American Fork now. He's an absolute stud. And we knew it. We saw him as a freshman, Dusty, getting minutes at Wasatch Academy, thought, oh, this kid, he's going to grow into something special. Well, now we get to see him as a junior. So what has that progression been like? And I think he's going to be really, really key for this AF squad. They welcome in some other shooters as well. Coach Cuff, he's excited about some youngsters coming up in the program. The thing to me that I think is of biggest note when we think of American Fork is Noah Moiyaki. What does that look like? Because a young man who won a state championship as their point guard as a freshman. Well, I was expecting big things from Noah this year, thought that he was really going to help to pace this team along and help, in my opinion, they were going to be my preseason pick to win a state championship because you had all those other pieces around him, and now you got that experience at the point guard position. He doesn't look like he's going to be playing this year. Had a football injury, getting through that, getting healthy again. So don't know that we're going to see Noah. I think that's a really big loss. I don't quite know what that looks like, but you see some other guys stepping up. Jake Chapman has one of those transfers in, has looked really, really good. We talked about Kohler, young, averaging double figures. So they got a lot of other pieces. For me, if they can settle down that point guard position and deal with some of the tough defenses they're going to deal with, this team is going to be one that's it's going to be a challenge for teams to match up with.
Well, it'll be very interesting to watch what happens. And then from there, I mean, I say, more talent. It's just because of Kohler. I think probably more, I know Isaac Johnson was really, really good. It was that top recruit, went to Oregon. By the way, his brother Spencer, got to give him a shout out because we covered him. He's lighting it up for the Cougs. But,
he played.
but Kohler is one of those guys who can be an absolute difference maker and someone that if Cuff on a bad night, you know what? I know this kid knows who he is. We're getting the ball. So he's going to brought him up. But then you look at PG and even Skyridge, and Skyridge might have the most versatile player in all of the state, but now he's got to be the dude, and he's shown up pretty well. Duncan Reed started out the season really, really strong.
Well, he has, Dusty. And I mean, this is a young man that I think last year as a junior joined the 1,000-point club as a junior, right? So he can score the basketball. His mid-range game can be really, really good. To me, it's all going to rely on the pieces around him. If he can get consistent scoring from some of those other guys and help free up space for him, then this Irish team becomes really tough to deal with. And you think of a guy like Nick Holland, that outside shooter. Can he get more consistent and get more looks and more minutes this year? I think that's going to be really critical. Think of Dallin Yates, kind of that big presence down low in the paint. I mean, how do you replace a Trevin Snowdy? They just don't grow on trees, right? So can Yates kind of fill into that sort of a role? Going to be interesting to see. There are a lot of interesting pieces here for Coach Gardner. The problem is this region is so tough that you just don't have a lot of nights for that development. So who can slide into those new roles, play big minutes, have big impact on the team, help carry the load for Duncan Reed. But this Irish team, look, they are not short on talent. They got all the pieces that you need to be competitive in this region.
Yeah, let's talk PG. Coach, we know Coach Randy McAllister is always going to have a great squad. It seems like every year there's new names, but there's one consistent, and that is a future Utah Ute football player, Isaac Vaha. But this PG Vikings team is what you expect from Coach McAllister.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be tough. And you talk about Isaac Vaha, boy, he's so good. But how about the sophomore point guard, Jordan Ross? Last year as a freshman started, had key minutes, key plays that he made for this PG team. And I really expect him to take, that next step in his growth and development and start to see him, really take a lot more of that leadership role. Not that he didn't before, but you just continue to see his progression and growth and development. I think he's going to be a fun player to watch. Again, just a sophomore for these PG Vikings. Then you look at Daniel Minton, a young guy who returning contributor from last year. He can score the basketball too. He's had some nice games in the early going for this PG squad. And Coach McAllister, he's always going to come prepared, good game plan, going to coach up his boys. This is going to be a fun PG team and one that pushed a lot of teams last year. They were really competitive, more competitive than I expected them to be, and they returned some of their best players from that squad. So I think this PG team is going to be really, really fun to watch.
Corner Canyon is a team that, they lost that Falcon Classic Championship game to Skyridge, but Trace Ross is not going to go 1-16 all the time. Trace Ross is one of the best scorers you might not know a ton about. He and Carter Welling, who has been absolutely dynamic out the gates.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, Dusty, that is a 1-2 punch between Trace Ross, Carter Welling. It feels like any night either or both could go for 20 plus. And it's just difficult to try to lock them down. They've got a great inside presence, great outside presence, and they can get up and down the floor as well. They got a lot of speed on that roster, and they are not short of talent at all. But it's not just these two. I mean, one of the guys who's been great in the early, how about Tate Staley, huh? I mean, that's got to make the Litster family happy, huh? He's been off to a really good start. And then Max Tubes, I mean, he played last year as a freshman. And I feel like, younger brother of Gabe, we remember what Gabe did for this program, led them to a state championship just a couple years ago. Max, along those same bloodlines, going to be interesting to see his contribution, this Corner Canyon team. Dusty, I mean, they play year-round, and it shows when they get out on the court. This is a really fun team to watch, good pace, a lot of talent. They're going to be a tough out in Region 4.
Yeah, I'm not going to forget a Staley. You've heard my Staley probably throughout the video. I mean, that's why she's named Staley. So
yeah,
but Westlake, we know Westlake's always going to be there. It's going to be very interesting to watch what happens there. They have a lot of talent coming back. But this Region 4, I think our championship pick later on the show, I bet it'll come out of this region. I'm going to guess. I'm going to venture a guess. But so if you got thoughts on 6A, hit us up. I'm sure there's so many names. I know we're going to miss someone off, leave some people off there, but hit us up. Let us know your thoughts on 6A in those regions. Who are some of the teams or maybe players we're missing out on? Love to hear from you because there's so much change and transition that goes into basketball. We know we'll get our handle on it, but let us know if we're missing something there at DNews Rewind, at Dane_Stewart, at Dusty Litster. Let's look at 5A, and 5A is very, very interesting because when you look at what we saw a year ago, and man alive, those state championship games seem like they were 10 years ago from what happened 2 weeks after the state championship game. But when we look at the reigning champion, the Springville Red Devils, so much talent on that team, you're losing so many dudes. What does Coach Snell do in an encore?
I think he's trying to figure that out, Dusty. I mean, it's been a tough start for Springville here this season. And, I mean, you talk about all the guys they graduated. It was seemingly at just about every position for Springville where they were losing some really good talent, experienced talent, and now you're having to replace it. And I think that's going to be, a big chore. Saw a little bit of some of their games in the last week or so. And, they certainly don't have that big 7-foot presence in the middle anymore, defensively or offensively. They don't, not in Springville. And, I don't know how you try to replace that. They returned some guards and they returned some guys who can score. You think about Jack Schreiner. We've talked about him in previous years. But, I mean, for me, it's like, man, even that team last year that won state championship, there were guys that were playing on that roster, starting on the roster for multiple years. And so, for Coach Snell, is this just kind of all right, now we move on to the next group and we're going to groom them and help them to get more competitive. And not to say that you don't play a lot of seniors. I'm sure he will rely on their experience from a great playoff run, a state championship. But I think there's a lot of questions for Springville in terms of how they do try to reload and how they try to compete for a region championship. Because, you think of all the pieces they lost, shooters, guards, center, pretty much everywhere on the floor is going to look brand new for Springville.
Yeah, very, very interesting. In Region 8, I know there's some teams you'll want to go through, but a team that I'm expecting big things out of this year is an oldie from our beginnings, and that is Provo, because we saw what they did in that state tournament, and they're bringing back some of their best players that are underclassmen. What about the Provo Bulldogs?
Yeah, well, they only returned 2 starters, Dusty, but they were their best 2 starters, and they will be their best 2 starters, and that being Isaac.
Talent, right?
Yeah. I mean, that Isaac, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, Castagnetto, maybe? We'll get that right. Yeah. But and then you look at Juan Pablo Camargo. Those were the 2. And, I mean, they really, my opinion, they grew up in the state tournament. I mean, we're watching those state tournament games like, oh, my goodness. Who are these 2? And to have them back for another year in a region that does graduate a lot of talent, I think this Provo Bulldog team, in my mind, has to be one of the favorites for this Region 8, just because of what we saw from that pair in the playoffs last year, and expect them to be every bit as competitive and probably improved from that last year's team. This Provo team is going to rely on those 2, but it's a really good duo, and it's going to be tough for teams to match up and try to stop.
Yeah, we know it's going to be interesting because in Wasatch, you're going to have Ballstead and Sanders are going to have to carry the weight with other guys for Wasatch. And we know Salem Hills, they're learning all about themselves on Tuesdays. I know they're going to Wasatch Academy. The only home game this year, by the way, I know they're independent. I'll throw it out there anyway. The Wasatch Academy only gets one home game this year with COVID and what they're doing. But that's against Salem Hills. So you're going to find out some things about these guys. Who is a name or someone we should keep our eye on in Region 8 maybe we haven't talked about yet?
Oh, boy, that's a really good question, Dusty.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't want to.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm going to go a little off the radar here and think about a guy that flew under the radar a bit last year. Returner for the Payson Lions and Parker Larson, senior center for him last year. Almost averaged a double-double. I think it was 12 and 8, something like that. This Payson team, it's been a while, Dusty, since we've seen Payson at a really high competitive level. This could be a team that might sneak up on teams this year. If you're not careful of the Payson Lions, they return a bunch of starters, some real key contributors from last year's team. I think this is a team that, with Mitchell, they've got some guys that they can put some pieces together and maybe upset you if you aren't careful. Watch out for the Payson Lions, but I'll go with Parker Larson there as maybe one of those names that people might know him. I didn't. Kind of found it in my prep. I was like, oh, there's a good one coming back for the Lions.
I know I threw a curveball at you. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to short Region 8. Region 7, and this would be interesting because the runner-up in this region, and maybe one of the better, or probably the runner-up for the state championship came from this region, that being the Timpview T-Birds. And we know Coach Santiago, stop me if I've said this before, Timpview's returning a lot of talent, including their best player from last season.
Yeah. This Timpview team, Dusty, is going to be tough. A lot of length. And they've got one of the grittiest point guards in the classification in Coleman Ford. Young man that's been a contributor. I think this is his 4th year. I don't remember if he started as a freshman or not. I know that he played as a freshman.
I think he had it by the end of the year, yeah.
Yeah, he is an absolute stud. And you got to watch out for him at the point guard position. He is tough to deal with. But then you look at Jake Wallin. And 6'6", 6'7", can shoot it from the outside, good handler, can work the ball inside. Can score from anywhere. And in my opinion, this Timpview team, they're so good. Now, they did lose a really critical piece that I was expecting to have a big year for them, ended up transferring to another school. So it'll be interesting to see what impact that has on this Timpview squad. But look, Coach Santiago, he is going to teach his team to run the floor and to shoot threes. And you know that's going to happen with Timpview again this year. And I think this T-Bird team, understood they maybe left something on the floor last year. They want to come and finish business here in 2020, 2021.
Yeah, they feel like so many underclassmen, they were going to take so much from that experience. Then we look at, somewhere in Region 7, I know where you wanted to go next. We take it, for me, it's, hey, look at Orem because it's the other school within that region that's Perry Wildeboer. We know the job he does, but they're graduating 95% of their offense with Taft Mitchell,
Yeah.
who's now on the mission field. And what the Orem Tigers can look like this year, because I know that they're having to find out who they're going to be this year.
Yeah, they are. They do return some guys. Toya Vow is back. They've got a nice scorer as well. I think in Dane Christensen. I might need to look that up. But this Orem team, Dusty, I talked to a coach who played him, said they're good. They were able to kind of put some defensive clamps on, make them uncomfortable. They are scoring a little bit more than I expected. You talk about how much talent they graduated from last year's roster. And, for me, I was just kind of concerned if they'd be able to put up enough offense to win ball games. But so far, the first couple of weeks in, they've been able to do that. And this Orem team can sneak up on you. The Tigers, they like to kind of hide in the weeds. It is Dane Christensen. They like to kind of hide in the weeds, and then they'll pounce on you when you aren't expecting. And that may be how this Orem squad operates this year.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Region 7, Alta, they got Brownell, and there's so many others, in that area, in that region. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens in Region 7 because of who's going to step up and be that next team.
Yeah, they're going to be good. You also got to keep an eye out for Jackson Holcomb out of Timpanogos. And Dusty, I cannot believe you did not bring up the Lehigh Pioneers. You got Noah Gonzalez coming back.
I'm going there. Trust me, I'm going there. Nobody's waiting. You think I'm gonna go another couple minutes out talking about Quincy Lewis? You really
well, you went to Orem second. I was like, what is going on?
I was just setting it up before I went into it. I mean,
Well, you
Quincy Lewis
got
is a
me.
graduate of Region 4, for heaven's sakes. We'll take care of
Yeah.
that.
Well, this Lehigh team is going to be unreal. I mean, you talk about Gonzalez, Tyson Hawkins, Blake Hill, and then you welcome in Amakasu. They've got Brousseau, who's a youngster at 6'6". I mean, they've got all the talent you can imagine. This Lehigh team had a chance to see them. They are impressive.
Yeah, Lehigh's going to be really, really good. And what Quincy Lewis, we know what he'll bring. They're going to
Yeah.
score. They're going to play defense. And I'll be interested to see if that 1-3-1 comes back, depending on what he decides to do there. But no, Lehigh, you might hear about them later on in the program. Region 6. Region 6 will be so interesting. And normally I just go, hey, let's just go right into Olympus, because we know we got some guys. We got Worcester Sill and others. They're Olympus. And I'll start there because Matt Barnes is Matt Barnes. And I love talking about Matt Barnes. But the Olympus Titans, not a normal Olympus Titan year from a year ago. Olympus is going to have to bounce back this season.
Yeah, and in the early part, it's looking like they have been bouncing back. Dusty, 2-0 out of the gates. Great to see. You talk about JT Wistersill, and I think he's going to be really the go-to guy for them this year. I think he's going to stands to have a big year for the Olympus Titans. Chris Goviak comes back. Ben, remember, he's kind of a longer guard, can score, shares the basketball a bit. He's a really interesting player for this Olympus team. And we talked about coaches that like to shoot threes. Well, I mean, Coach Barnes is he was Golden State before Golden State. So if you want a team that shoots threes,
from the student section.
Yep. If you want a 3-point shooting team, you got the Olympus Titans. And I expect them, it was a tough year last year for Olympus. I think this year you're going to see them back on the radar and a team to be dealt with in 5A.
Yeah, it'd be very, very interesting what happened in there. And, Brighton over the years have been really, really good, but this Region 6 just continues to change. And, in East, for that matter, so much changeover. Andre Mulabea, who feels like he's been there since we started covering high school basketball. But you're moving on with Coach Smith moving on. And so there's so much in Region 6 that's yet to be defined what we can figure out there.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, Dusty. They've been off to a good start, actually. I've been really interested to see how they come with a new coach. And they've won a couple games. They've been impressive out of the chutes. Let me give you another team to keep an eye on. And if you recall last year, this was another team that kind of leapt off the floor a little bit late in the season in the playoffs. And it was because of the youngsters they had. And it's the Murray Spartans. You think of how many youngsters they played last year, freshmen, Workman, and Anosike. I mean, these were guys that was like, oh, man, give them another 2-3 years. They're going to be really, really good. They both come back. I think this Murray team, look, I'm not saying they're going to go and win a 5A state championship, but they're going to be a team that you're going to see them take that next step. Both Chudy as well as Workman, you're going to see their progression. And this Murray team, they might come up and snakebite a few teams that are unexpecting that type of a team or competitiveness from Murray. This is going to be a fun program to watch in the coming years under Coach Workman.
Well, I was just waiting. I wanted to lay off so then when we got to the state tournament, and he gets to the second round, Coach Workman go, hey, I'm Jason Workman. Nice to meet you. I was just trying to live true to it. That's all we're going to do. Yeah. But I agree with you. So let's go to Region 5. In this region, oh, mercy, where do we start here? Because we got to pick two of our favorites, and it's like picking from your favorite children. It's Sophie's choice. Where do we start? And I'll go with the one we've been with the longest, okay, just the longest, and that is Robert Whaley and the Bountiful Braves.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting, Dusty. You think of Whaley, he loses a lot of his outside shooters. Chisholm is gone. Who becomes kind of that outside presence? And I think that's what they're trying to kind of figure out here a little bit. You return Austin Cooper, you return Smith, but can you find that outside shooting presence? Look, Whaley doesn't even need it. I've said that he needs it. He doesn't even need it. I mean, he was an absolute monster against Lehigh in a game that we did last week. But, how are you going to provide some help scoring the rock? Because Whaley's not going to be able to go score 70 a game. He might get you 30, but you're going to have to find another 30, 40 points in there somewhere. So who's going to be that guy to kind of step up, help carry the load? But Whaley's an absolute beast. And if you haven't had a chance to go see him play, go check out Robert Whaley. You'll see him in warm-ups and be like, him? And then after the first warm-up, you'll be like, oh, my gosh, that guy. And he will just do things that are amazing. Even at Lehigh last week, there were a couple of plays where people were like, oh, Robert Whaley is that guy. And crazy to think that it's his senior year. Last chance we'll have to see him play. It's been a blast. He is going to be a beast for teams to try to slow down on the interior. Lehigh was bringing triple and quadruple teams against him. It was a sight to watch. But Robert Whaley, he's going to be the guy for the Bountiful Braves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we started there, because Robert Whaley, I mean, it's been next to you. I want to say a little pup, but he never was a little pup. He was just young. That's all. Let's go to probably the best underclassman in the state, in Colin Chandler at Farmington.
Well, he's been really good, Dusty. I mean, averaged 18 points a game last year. For me, it's just a matter of endurance. Can he carry the load, and that much of a load for that long? And it felt a little bit like in the state playoffs last year. I don't know that he ran out of steam, or teams really kind of keyed on him, trying to take him away. How are they going to help to carry the load for him? You think of a guy like Truman Hendry or Mordew, a couple guys that have that ability. So can they come up and do it consistently, night in, night out, help provide some of the load or relief of load on Colin Chandler? But you're right. Chandler, you watch what he's done over the summer and at different expositions and camps. I mean, this dude is getting all sorts of notoriety, and it's every bit of it is earned and deserved. He is an absolute star, and going to be fun to watch. Coach Walkenhurst, he's just a junior this year, so we've got another year still of Colin Chandler, but he had a phenomenal sophomore year, and I can't wait to see what's in store this year for Colin Chandler and the Farmington Phoenix.
I mean, he's the next Dallin Hall. I mean, let's call it what it was. I mean, we saw him as a sophomore. Like, here we go. And then it was a state tournament. And he's like, oh, my goodness, because he single-handedly nearly got the Farmington to the championship game, for heaven's sakes. And this kid is that good, and he'll continue to be that good. And let's talk about another team that got to the semifinals from this region, that being Woods Cross. So much change, so many guys moving on. But Woods Cross, I mean, year in and year out, what Casey Walkenhurst built has been kept going. And we know this could be a very, very good team. Coach Van Wagner does a great job.
Coach Jorgensen. At Woods Cross.
I knew it. Coach Jorgensen does such a good job.
Yeah, he does. And Dusty, I had a chance to see them play this last week. That defense, it's always locked in, man. They make it so difficult on you to try to score, but he replaces or has to replace so much talent. It's going to be interesting to see where Woods Cross goes to try to find some of that this year. They got some guys who can score, but are they going to be able to kind of deal with it? They were right there with Davis until about late in the first half, and the Darts started to pull away a little bit. They made a late charge, couldn't quite come back on it. But this Woods Cross team, you feel like they've got some pieces there. As the season goes on, they get more and more comfortable with each other. They've got some really interesting players there. Going to be an interesting bunch to follow over the course of the year for Woods Cross.
No, absolutely. I know Coach Emery does a great job, and also, Box Elder always is tough in Region 5 as well. But hit us up. Let us know what you think of our 5A stuff, because it's very interesting what's going to happen in 5A. Go deeper in this year, what we do know is that there'll be teams and players that we didn't expect, like Farmington a year ago, and some others that's a pleasant surprise, and we'd like to hear about them as soon as we can if there's stuff that we're missing. So hit us up on Twitter at DNewsRewind, at Dane_Stewart, at Dusty Litster, and let us know. All right, let's get to our Riley Gents mental performance moment of the week.
Well, Dusty, this one's going to come in one that was a bit of a shocker for me. You had Cottonwood and Pineview going head-to-head, and this game looked to be all Pineview. It was 27-15 at the half. And look, Cottonwood basketball, it's been a while. It's been a program that's been struggling for a while now, but they threw all that out the window. They made an impressive second-half charge. In fact, in the end, it was Cottonwood that hit the game winner at the Horde, coming back from a double-digit deficit at the break. Aiden Oliphant had 13 points and 8 rebounds. Noah Weiderberg, you're going to hear that name a lot on Deseret News Rewind. I promise you that. 20 points, 6 rebounds as Cottonwood comes back to stun the Panthers 48-47 at the last moment. Hey, all that halftime deficit, get that out of your mind, clear the mechanism. The Colts, congratulations on being our Riley Jensen mental performance of the week.
Absolutely. Go to RileyJensenPerformance.com and go set up your time with Riley. I talk about it all the time. I meet with Riley, and you can too. And it's not just about mental performance. Get ready better in the boardroom, better with your business, everything else. Go to Riley Jensen Performance. All right, let's go to the Black Clover looking good. And this is a little bit different. This isn't about what you have done. It's what we think you will do. Let's pick our 4A, 5A, and 6A projected state champions. Dane, we'll start with 4A first because we spent so much time on 5A and 6A in this video. Who are you picking to win 4A?
This is really tough, Dusty. I was trying to think, all right, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? There was a team that I thought had a really good week this last week, and you might look at their record and be like, yeah, them. I'm going to go with the Cedar Reds, Dusty, as my pick for the 4A state championship. They returned Dallin Grant. Young man did not play at the Sky Ridge tournament, and yet they still were impressive. They blew out Wasatch. They had a lead on Copper Hills. They lost that game late. Trayton Tebbs averaging 19 points a game to start the year. Luke Armstrong at 12. Gage Savage at 9. Jorgen Reyes at 12. And they don't even have their best player and future Utah State Aggie, Dallin Grant. I'm going with the Cedar Reds. Book it, Dano. My 4A preseason state champ.
I like it. Cedar, you know what? You stole mine, and so now I'm scrambling a little bit because I was like, I don't know if Dane saw this one coming. I was like, I'm going to go off the beaten path because normally I would go. I want to go there. Maybe I will go there. My default is just go to St. George, and Dixie comes to mind. I know Dixie Flyers. But I'm going to stay in St. George. I'll go Dixie. That's fine. Right. I can eat crow later because I was going to go Skyview, but I was like, it's not football, no Mason Fossil, but I'll go Dixie. I think Dixie will be good this year, right?
I'll tell you another team to keep an eye on. Another team in 4A to keep an eye on. Juan Diego. Just throwing that out there.
You just have to remember that Juan Diego's in 4A and not a 3A team when it comes to everything else besides football. But then I'll do that. I mean, that's fine. I can eat crow later in 4A. I'll do that. It's not a problem. 5A. All right, 5A. Who's your 5A state champion?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If you would have asked me this question a week ago, Dusty, I'd probably have a different answer for you. But you know what happens with time? We learn, right? We observe, we see things, we learn, we take it, we process it. And after processing, hey, I'm going with the Lehigh Pioneers. And I know this is probably going to steal your thunder again, Dusty, but this is what happens when you let me go first. So impressed with Lehigh. They are deep. They are long. They are athletic. They can shoot. This is a complete team, and they are locked in defensively. I'll tell you, Coach Lewis, I hate to put the expectations on you. This is the first team to win a state championship in basketball, and I think they're going to be the most recent come March in 2021.
I was like, wait a minute, what buying calendar are you looking at? All right, fine. You're gonna take Lehigh from me. Here's. Let me preface a couple things because I think most people think they know where I'm going to go. Okay, and it's a team that normally I would just stay in the South region, and I would do that. I'd pick TFU, but whenever I pick TFU early, it really hurts Coach Santiago. So I won't do that. There's certain teams I put a hex on whenever I put expectations on them, so I won't do it. So I'm going to go to Farmington, and I'm going to ride Colin Chandler, just like I did Dallin Hall. I hitched my wagon to Colin Chandler in that state tournament last year. I was like, that kid, he's the next Dallin Hall for me. I'm jumping in both feet. I know he's got some family ties. He's got, I talk about Carbon County ties. He's got some Coletti family ties, and my mom, her side of the family, the woman took care of him when he was little, Jesse Riley. Jesse's a family member of mine, a cousin, and she's known Colin since he was a baby. So now he's got connections to me, so I'm riding Colin Chandler. So I'm going Farmington, 5A. All right, 6A.
Well, Dusty, this has been a challenge for me because I've known where I was going to go here for a long time. And I mentioned earlier in the show injury news, and it kind of made me think, oh, man, I just don't know. They can do it now. But you know what? Of course they can. I'm staying with American Fork. It worked out well for them last time I picked them. They may have lost some season series, but they got it right in the end. I'm going with Coach Cuff and American Fork. They're my 6A pick.
Interesting. Someone was asking me earlier tonight, what do you think? And we were on the same wavelength there, same region. No, I don't want us picking the same team unless I just feel like it's a foregone conclusion. And I think the 6A tournament's going to be very, very interesting. And I'm going to pick a team, and some people are going to scratch their heads, but I'm going to go there anyway. And that is Corner Canyon. I'm picking the Chargers. Trace Ross is not going 1 for 16. It is not happening. And Sky Ridge, I know Coach Gardner is going to be like, Dusty, what are you doing? Coach, you can text me later. And not only that, I'll save it. So when you get to the state tournament, just like Jason Workman yells at me, you can point at me when I walk in the building saying, that guy did not believe in you. I'm giving you that opportunity. But I'm going to go with Welling and Ross, the 1-2 punch. I think we'll get it done, and Coach Lunt will raise his second banner at Corner Canyon. So who do you got winning 4A, 5A, 6A? Hit us up on Twitter at DNewsRewind, at Dane_Stewart, or at Dusty Litster. Love to hear from you. And let us know who you think should win the 4A and 5A state championships. I'm sure plenty of people are going to love my 4A pick and the scientific method to win into that one. But hit us up. Let us know what you think. For Vince Francis and Dane Stewart, I'm Dusty Litster. Thanks for joining us and watching Deseret News Rewind on Deseret.com.